Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another edition of News in Focus, live on Radio Lansar, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM in Durban and 105.6 FM in Pietermaritzburg. Yes, audio streaming on www.alansar.org.za. My name is SUMAYA Khan and I am your host. Brother Yunus Sakur is on holiday, or may I say at Umrah. So may he remember us and may he remember every single one who requires the du'as from the Almighty. Today's the date is 4th of February 2026, 16 Shaban. Tonight on News in Focus, our host, which is me again, SUMAYA Khan, alone, not with Brother Yunus. But later on in the show, we'll be having a lineup of different guests and different topics. Today, we unpack some of the most pressing political and economic issues shaping our world, from the reopening of the Rafah crossing and whether it offers genuine humanitarian relief or a limited political gesture. Also to South Africa's, pros changes to Black economic empowerment and the debate about real transformation versus pay to comply. We also examine the possible arrival of Starlink in South Africa, and economic opportunity or a costly experiment, one would say. So this is News in Focus, bringing you all that you need to know, clarity and the critical engagement to the issues that matter. We'll be taking a short nasheed break.
Every child deserves the gift of reading. Radio Al Ansar, in partnership with School Matters with SUMAYA Khan, is hosting a book drive, and we need your support. We're collecting gently used storybooks, novels, and school textbooks for children in need. Drop off your books now until the 26th of April at Radio Al Ansar, Durban 207 West Road or 240 Ortman Road in Pietermaritzburg. Don't let unused books collect dust. Give a child a future, one book at a time.
For too many communities across Africa and the world, access to clean water remains a dream. At Africa Muslims Agency, we dig deep, reaching into the heart of the earth to fill the cups of those in need. Sponsor a water well for 16,500 Rand, or a borehole in Afghanistan for 55,000 Rand, or Africa for 65,000 Rand, or any amount. With water comes food, health, education, and growth. An ongoing reward with Africa Muslims Agency.
The trucks have arrived and stocks are in. Yes, Wonder Dates have the largest variety of dates from Medina, Dubai, Iran, Tunisia, and Namibia. They stock a huge range of spices, nuts, dried fruit, and best of all, your Ramadan goodies at the best prices. So, for everything nutty, nibbly, chewy, munchy, spicy, sweet, sour, and savory, make a date with Wonder Dates, bringing the freshness of the farm to your home. Remember our new address, 9 Peters Road, Springfield Park, Durban. Contact us on 031 577 7722. Call now.
Did you look at the night, see the light of the moon? Did you look at the sun, giving you warmth? Did you look at the sky? Are you falling?
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, welcome back to News in Focus with me, SUMAYA Khan. This evening we have a really big lineup unpacking important current events. As we mentioned, that there's so much going on. One of the events, our topics right now, with our guests who arrive, is the Rafah crossing reopens. Is it a humanitarian lifeline or a limited gesture? Our guest in studio is Dr. Lubna Nadvi. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Jazakallah for taking the time to be here with us. She is well known for her activism. She's well known as a political analyst. I'll also say someone who's quite involved with PSF and also with so many other human rights activists and causes. She's quite involved. Right now, Dr. Lubna Nadvi, one would say that, as its discussions around ceasefires and reconstructions continue, a critical question remains: who gets to decide Gaza's future? From global powers to regional actors, external parties, and also increasingly shaping conversations around peace, often without the direct voice of Palestinians themselves. This evening we want to examine whether these efforts bring genuine peace or whether they risk imposing political solutions disconnected or, from realities on the ground. So one would say, who are the main external actors currently influencing decisions about Gaza's future?
Well, the only people who should be influencing Gaza's future are the Palestinians or the people who live in Gaza. But unfortunately, as we know, over 78 years plus, Palestine has been occupied by Israel. It has been obviously shaped by other actors and players, in particular the United States, countries from Europe, of course, countries from around the world. So Palestinians have had to basically deal with having decisions imposed on them for more than 7 decades. And so where we are right now is obviously after the so-called ceasefire, which hasn't really been a ceasefire because there have still been bombings and killings of Palestinians in Gaza. There is the so-called peace plan or 20-point plan that Donald Trump, who was the president of the USA, has put in place, and he's got the so-called peace group that he's put together, or board of peace as it's called, with various countries and heads of state that have signed on. And they have been making decisions for Gaza in terms of who will lead the sort of reconstruction, or who will lead other factors or other activities in Gaza. Because obviously Gaza's been destroyed. It's been basically demolished to the ground. So you have to, first of all, clear the rubble. You've got to ensure that there's a functional infrastructure. But more importantly than that, you've got to make sure that the people who have been injured, the people who are sick, the people who are hungry, the people who are homeless have to be attended to first. So forget about building the homes and the tall buildings and what have you. You've got to make sure that food gets in to Gaza. You've got to make sure that the patients and the sick people who are currently in Gaza are able to actually get out to, get treatment, especially through the Rafah crossing, which is one of the things you want to look at, to be able to get to Egypt and perhaps beyond that to get treatment. So in terms of who makes decisions, there are many other groups. There's all these humanitarian groups that after the ceasefire have re-entered Gaza. There is some sort of aid that is, coming in, but it's not enough, as we all know, for the population of 2 million plus. So at the end of the day, Palestinians have been hamstrung. They are not allowed to decide their own political future, their own infrastructure, who's going to govern them, how to basically live every day. They have been imposed upon, and that's the reality on the ground. As I said, there's several countries that are involved. The so-called Board of Peace, Donald Trump has brought in his family, like his son-in-law and his friends and whoever else. It's just unbelievable that you have the situation on the ground. And of course, you have civil society, you have Palestine solidarity activists around the world who also want to be able to help the Palestinians. And they are doing everything they can to do that. So this is a kind of bird's eye view of who are the people who are trying to help the Palestinians.
The UN is always involved everywhere. What role would you say international institutions like the UN actually play? And where do they fall short?
So there was a structure called UNRWA, which is the United Nations Relief Works Program, which was meant to have been the, UN structure that was dealing with kind of education issues, development, food, etc. So basically a kind of development entity for the Palestinians. And of course, the kind of 2-year genocide resulted in that entity shutting down. There were, of course, other humanitarian groups that were on the ground working together with UNRWA, the UN, food program, or the World Food Program, I should say, the UN Children's Organization, and so on and so on. So there are various UN organizations that had been functioning, but they were basically forced to shut down because of all the bombings. A lot of UN workers employed by the United Nations were killed. And so the UN has also suffered a great loss on the ground. But as we can also see that there are shifts happening in the international community where the UN is being marginalized on all levels. There are countries that are not paying their subscriptions to the UN. So it can't function. It can't pay its salaries to its employees. And whatever work it's supposed to do on the ground, it is struggling because of all of these machinations, if I can use that word, that are unfolding to try and put the UN, to one side. But the UN must also take responsibility for its inaction, because for 80 plus decades, it has, through its what is called the UN Security Council, failed. I say failed, to actually take action on Palestine. So even though it's going through all of these difficulties and challenges, it should have basically implemented its own UN resolutions, the many that have been passed, regarding what it was supposed to have done on the ground, particularly in the West Bank and, of course, Gaza. But it failed to do that. So it has failed as an organization internationally, and now it is in decline, I would say, on multiple levels.
Would you say is reconstruction being used as leverage to shape Gaza's political future?
So Donald Trump wants to turn it into the Riviera of the Middle East. So that's the word that he's used. He's a what you would call an estate businessman. He has been kind of entrepreneur. He's been, building buildings for his whole life, right? So he basically sees every territory in the world as a place where you can put up buildings and make lots of money. And that's the way that he's looking at this. He doesn't see Gaza as a place where human beings live, where mothers, fathers, children live. He just sees it as this big business possibility for him. So, the issue of reconstruction is being used as a way to leverage perhaps, obviously opportunities for business people to come in, invest, for countries to come in and get their piece of the pie. The Palestinians should be the first in line to say, okay, we will accept help from whoever, but we don't want our home to be turned into this sort of international, kind of holiday resort, which is what I think the American government is looking to do.
Well, there were rumors about it, and one just said it could just be stories media is putting up, but when you think of the history of Donald Trump, and how he lives his life, you wouldn't put that past him, It's just another money-making venture and something to do with, fame and popularity. How do regional players in the Middle East influence the outcomes compared to the Western powers?
So you have Egypt, which is on the border of Gaza and Palestine. You have UAE, you have Qatar, you have Saudi Arabia. Those are sort of the more influential players in the Middle East. And Iran. Let's not forget Iran. Iran has for many years been supporting other entities that have been sort of, engaging in, let's call it, militant action in the region, and basically have been, trying to provide military support for the Palestinians in various ways. Then there's also the kind of political support that is expected from the other players like Qatar and Saudi Arabia and the UAE. So, for example, the governing player or the government of Gaza has been Hamas. And Hamas speaks to the Americans, speaks to the European Union, speaks to all the external players via its Arab partners, which is Qatar and the UAE, right? So that's how it tends to communicate. And Saudi Arabia, to some degree, is also part of that. And because Saudi Arabia and the United States have a close relationship, there's also these machinations of who's going to do what. And the UAE has been unfortunately, a real, I would say, failure with regards to its role. Qatar has, to some degree, tried to play a more honest mediator role, but again, it's also been hamstrung on some levels. People have been critical of Iran. Of course, Iran has gone through its own drama recently with all of the local protests that have been happening on the ground. So the issue now is all of these so-called powerful local regional players should have been able to say to the United States, look, we will step in and we will support Palestine. We will do what we can. Egypt, of course, has been it's not been a good neighbor to Gaza. It has listened to the Israelis in terms of what, the Israelis tell it to do. It's just basically taken instructions from Israel, especially around the Rafah crossing, because it's on the border and it manages that, or co-manages it. And then, of course, there's, I would say, other parties that are in the sort of BRICS region. There's other players like China, Russia, India. They have their own position on this issue. And then there's Turkey. Turkey is more sort of in Europe, but it's also been quite involved in the past in terms of supporting reconstruction within Gaza when Israel has previously bombed the Gaza Strip. So what is the role of all these players? They should have been there to protect the Palestinians. They should have provided military support. They should have provided other forms of support. Although they claim that, they've got all these trucks lined up on the borders outside both the Rafah border and the Eretz crossing and other crossings into Gaza, but they don't play a role to make sure that food gets in. In other words, they should have a more kind of affirmative role to protect the Palestinians. And I don't think they've done that as much as they could have.
Since you touch on that there, would you say, are there just talks about ceasefire? The ceasefire talks focus on ending violence or just managing it? That's the question. Are they ending it or just managing it?
I think that there's just a management happening at the moment because of the fact that you have ongoing bombs and killing happening. So a ceasefire is meant to be an agreement where if any one of the parties violates the ceasefire, there should be consequences. But there's no consequences for Israel. It can just shoot at, civilians just walking by and just harm them, hurt them. So at the moment, whatever agreement there is in the ceasefire, the Palestinians are not benefiting from it. Even though with the opening of the Rafah border now, there may be some ill and sick individuals who have been able to leave
Yeah.
to get treatment outside, and some people who were stuck outside of Rafah, outside of Gaza, I should say, have been able to come back in and reunite with their families. But I would not say that there's been any real benefits to the Palestinians with the ceasefire. They always end up suffering,
Always the case.
no matter what happens.
Gee. When you're looking at it, what lessons can be learned from past externally driven peace initiatives in Palestine?
Well, I don't know if you can actually talk about peace initiatives in Palestine. I mean, we've seen throughout the almost 80-year history of the region, well, Palestine goes back way before, Israel was created in 1948, right? So there's a long history. It's the land of the prophets and it's the Holy Land.
Yeah.
So there were periods throughout history where Palestine was a very peaceful place to live. The Jewish people, the Christian people, and the Muslim people coexisted, right? So there has been peace in the land of Palestine. But in the modern era, and certainly since the creation of Israel in 1948, it's very difficult to even think of what might be considered a peace plan. So I'm not quite sure how one conceptualizes that. But there have been external, perhaps, attempts in other countries where people have met to talk about how can we help the Palestinians. So like in South Africa, we've had meetings. In Europe, they've had gatherings. We've had conferences. We've had activist get-togethers. We've had attempts to get activists to go to Gaza by ship, by land. So there have been lots of efforts made to try and find this so-called peace in Palestine. But the Israelis won't have it. They have kept the Palestinians divided in West Bank, in Gaza, and in the diaspora. So they know that once Palestinians get together, there's nothing that will stop them from actually being able to come together and create the peace that they want. So for Israel, they've got to keep the Palestinians divided and segregated for as long as they can.
So they cannot be united.
So they cannot be united. They cannot find peace, the lasting peace that they deserve, and become a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
Well, interesting points, and refreshing us, because a lot of fake media, the way it's done, one would tend to believe it, and we would think there's positive change, but again, what's happening on the ground and what's out in the press is two different things. You are listening to News in Focus with me, Sumaya Khan. Our guest is Dr. Lubna Nadvi. Our topics for discussion this evening are Rafah crossing reopens, a humanitarian lifeline, or a limited gesture. South Africa proposes a new way for companies to comply with Black economic empowerment, progress or pay to comply. Starlink and other political issues happening in South Africa, talking about economic opportunities. Well, we'll be taking a short nasheed break and we would unpack much more.
This Adhan is sponsored for the Isale Sawab of Marhum Muhammad Farooq Latib and all Marhumin. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them the highest abode in Jannah. Ameen.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة والدرجة الرفيعة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته وارزقنا شفاعته يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد.
This dua brought to you by Simplex Radio, South Africa's leading retailer of appliances, car sound and home theater systems.
These surahs after Azan are brought to you by Amina's Wonder Spice and Wonder Dates, 9 Peters Road, Springfield, Durban.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس.
Having a clean, comfortable home is every homeowner's pride. That's why Khan's Chemicals have developed and manufactured prime yet affordable quality household brands Starlight, Miracle Mum, Exterminate, and Angie to care for your home and family. With a wide range of fabric softeners, dishwashing liquids, bleachers, and all-purpose cleaners, pine gels, bubble baths, and much more, Khan's Chemicals ensures your home remains our #1 priority. For sales and other inquiries, call 011 933 4021. Khan's Chemicals, cleaning your home the way you want.
At this time of trial and worry. The blessings of charity are the ideal means to avoid calamity and despair. The Al-Imdad Foundation gives you the opportunity to sponsor a share in a borehole in South Africa for just 1,000 rand and provide what the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, called the best form of charity. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
Welcome to Simplex Radio. Visit our showroom for the full range of car audio. Our TV department carries top brands with quality LED panels, full HD to Ultra HD, and now the experience of Super Ultra HD. Visit our theater rooms and transform your home with brands like Onkyo, Integra, Denon, Boston Acoustics, Yamaha, and more for quality audio visual experience. Now available, full range of home appliances. A one-stop shopping experience. Call 031 306 4029 or Kenilworth Park, 202 Brickfield Road, Overport. Simplex Radio, the name you can trust.
Get ready to elevate your fitness game at First Fitness in Durban's Berea. With a spacious free weight area, award-winning equipment, and exclusive ladies-only parking and training level, we've got everything you need to crush your goals. Hit the ground running on our outdoor track or unleash your inner warrior in our MMA and boxing dungeon. Plus, enjoy high security and ample parking. And don't forget to refuel at our halal coffee and health restaurant for the best in coffees, smoothies, and healthy eats. Join us today and redefine your fitness journey. First Fitness, dare to be extraordinary.
Listen to News in Focus on Radio Al-Ansar, Durban 90.4 and Pietermaritzburg 105.6 FM every Wednesday from 8 p.m. with Yunus Sakur. That's 8 p.m. every Wednesday. Radio Al-Ansar, keeping you informed.
नबी की महफिलें तो हम सजाएंगे रबीउल नूर का महीना आ गया रबीउल नूर का महीना आ गया रबी की महफिलें तो हम सजाएंगे ये दुनिया जो कहे नहीं परवाह कोई ये दुनिया जो कहे नहीं परवाह कोई जश्न नबी का हम सदा मनाएंगे महीना आ गया रबीउल नूर का महीना आ गया रबी की महफिलें तो हम सजाएंगे है विलादत शहे अंबिया की उस नबी मुस्तफा की जिसके दम से है रौनक जहां की उस हबीबे खुदा की समाये चार सू उन्हीं की गुफ्तगू समाये चार सू उन्हीं की गुफ्तगू उन्हीं के जिक्र से ये दिन मनाएंगे महीना आ गया रबीउल नूर का महीना आ गया रबी की महफिलें तो हम सजाएंगे दो जहां के लिए मेरे आका अब्रे रहमत बने हैं वो जो आए जहां में तो देखो गलियां कूचे सजे हैं बहारे आ गई नबी जो आ गए बहारे आ गई नबी जो आ गए हम उनके आने की खुशी मनाएंगे महीना आ गया रबीउल नूर का महीना आ गया रबी की महफिलें तो हम सजाएंगे कहकशाओं ने गाए तराने नगमे गाए फजाने कहकशां ने गाए तराने नगमे गाए फजाने गीत भी है सुनाए हवाने कैसे पल ये सुहाने खिली है हर गली चरागा हर गली खिली है हर गली चरागा हर गली अंधेरे अब कभी कहीं न छाएंगे रबी उन्नूर का महीना आ गया रबी उन्नूर का महीना आ गया रबी की महफिलें तो हम सजाएंगे जब तस्वुर किया मैंने ऐसा कि नबी सामने हो गई दूर सारी
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, welcome back to News in Focus. You know, this evening we are unpacking quite a few topics. But the topic right now, which we are discussing, is Rafah Crossing reopens humanitarian lifeline or a limited gesture. Our guest in studio is Dr. Lubna Nadvi. We have been discussing, the situation, the current situation, and what's really going on. It's quite different, when what you read and what's on the ground. We were discussing the last one. We discussed about the ceasefire. Are they just doing it to manage it? And looks like that it's just being managed, but it's not being, encouraged to be stopped. Dr. Lubna Nadvi, how can the voices of ordinary Gazans be meaningfully included in decision making? Are they included, or it's outside forces?
The Palestinians have said to us, who are civil society activists, who are solidarity activists, to amplify their voice. That's basically what they've asked us to do. And what does that mean? It means that they are asking for some very basic things to be accomplished, and that is for them to be given their right to dignity, to enjoy their human rights like we all do, and to have political self-determination, because those are rights that every human being is entitled to. When you enter this world, it doesn't matter whether you are born into a poor home or a rich home or whatever, you have some basic human rights which you are entitled to. Unfortunately, because of society and social structures, class and discrimination and all those factors, people unfortunately get denied and deprived of those things, because that's the world that we live in. But the voices of Palestinians have been heard loud and clear around the world, and especially when October 7 happened. And very often people misunderstand 7th of October as being some kind of what you would call act of violence by Hamas. What it was a Palestinian action saying, we want to be heard, we need to be heard. And so whatever happened on that day, unfortunately, people did lose their lives. There are many perspectives of what happened, who did what was burnt, what wasn't burnt, all of those things. But at the end of the day, we talk about this concept of resistance. And we say when injustice becomes law, resistance becomes duty. So if you look at what the Palestinians have been doing all this while, is they have been resisting against their oppression, and that is their voice. Resistance is their voice. And so they have said to us around the world, as civil society, as citizens of the world, amplify our voice and do this by virtue of acts of resistance, but also just by virtue of letting the people in power, speaking truth to power, and
Yeah.
saying to them, we deserve to live. We deserve to live a normal life, just like any person in the world, like any, ordinary person that has hopes and dreams, grows up to, maybe become a parent, has children, has a family. Why should the Palestinians be denied that?
Yeah.
Why must they be characterized as terrorists? Just because the Israelis say that every Palestinian child that is born is a demographic threat to Israelis. Does that make Palestinians a demographic threat? No, it doesn't. So the thing is that the truth is that the narrative that the Israelis have wanted to, be dominant for a very long time, unfortunately was dominant.
Yeah.
But it has been shown to be a myth, a lie. And so what the Israelis have been saying, there's many other names that I can use for the Israelis, but I'll refer to them as, what they are. They have been making all of these claims that the Palestinians are this and that and what have you. But the Palestinians are just human beings who deserve to live like everyone else. So when you ask, is their voice being heard? How should their voice be heard? Yes, their voice is being heard, because I never thought I would see this, but I saw Jewish students at university campuses taking their degree certificates and tearing them up, saying that we stand with the Palestinians and we are tearing our degree certificates because my university refuses to divest from Israel. And I do not want this degree because I stand for truth. That there's nothing more powerful than that, to say that the Palestinian voice has been heard. But now that needs to translate into action so that the Palestinians can get what they deserve.
Well, we would love to continue, but we will be breaking for our news.
Radio Al Ansar, 24/7, 365.
An informative Islamic global perspective. This is Al Ansar News.
The news from Durban 90.4 FM, Pietermaritzburg 105.6 FM. Ispingo accident victims are identified, America Monina. Local media says the families of all 11 victims of last week's tragic accident in Ispingo have now been identified by their loved ones. The Department of Transport in KwaZulu-Natal says investigators assisted them at Parkerini mortuary with the final identification completed yesterday. A truck collided with a minibus taxi on the old R102 in Lotus Park last week. Authorities say the truck driver lost control in rainy conditions before crashing into an overloaded taxi. The transport departments in Dabis and Lesbia says the victims, aged between 18 and 69, included 2 people from the Eastern Cape. He says others will be laid to rest in KwaZulu-Natal. Local media says despite a slight year-on-year dip in food prices, South African households are still feeling the pressure they feel. The latest household basket index released at the end of January shows that a basic monthly food basket still cost around 5,400 rands. Money or financial coach Haley Perry says the increase from December to January was especially tough. She says some households were forced to find extra money for groceries at a time when budgets are still overstretched. Perry says that the pressure pushed families into reactive spending. More news. The Democratic Alliance DA thanked its outgoing leader, John Steenhuisen, for what it described as 6 years of determined leadership as federal leader of the party. The party says under Steenhuisen's leadership, the DA not only strengthened its institutional stability and electoral performance, but achieved a historic breakthrough by entering national government. The DA says being in government was a long-standing objective that was pursued by successive generations of party leaders. Didier thanked Stianese following his announcement today that he is withdrawing from the leadership contest. The party will start its national conference to elect a new leader in April. In a statement, party spokesperson Jan de Villiers says under Stianese's stewardship, joining the government of national unity was an achievement that fundamentally shaped South Africa's political landscape. De Villiers says that the move stood as a testament to Stianese's vision, perseverance, and commitment to building a viable alternative to the ANC. And finally, Libyan prosecutors today say they are investigating the killing of Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, the son of the slain ruler Muammar Gaddafi, in the city of Zintan in Libya. The public prosecutor's office says forensic experts had been dispatched to Zintan in northwest Libya, where Saif al-Islam was shot dead, adding that efforts are underway to identify the suspect. Masa Sikaldi, a lawyer who had been representing Saif al-Islam, told international media he was killed by an unidentified four-man commando who stormed his house yesterday. The head of the Presidential Council, a transitional body supposed to represent all of Libya under a UN agreement, urged political forces, the media and social actors to show restraint in public statements and to avoid incitement to hate. The younger Gaddafi, Saif al-Islam, 53 years of age, had been seen by some as his father's successor. Libya has also struggled to recover from chaos that erupted after a NATO-backed uprising in 2011, which overthrew Muammar Gaddafi. It remains split between a UN-backed government based in Tripoli and an Eastern administration backed by Khalifa Haftar. Saif al-Islam was arrested in November 2011 in southern Libya following a warrant issued by the International Criminal Court in The Hague for alleged crimes against humanity. Report says a Tripoli court later sentenced him to death in 2015 after a speedy trial, but he was granted amnesty. In 2021, he announced he would run for president, but elections were indefinitely postponed. Your weather at 28 degrees. A quick reminder of our top story. Families of 11 persons or victims of last week's accident in Espingo have now identified their loved ones. That's the news.
The views and opinions expressed by the guests and presenters of Radio Al Ansar are not necessarily the views and opinions of Radio Al Ansar and the Al Ansar Foundation.
This Ramadan, let's spread kindness and modesty. Many children and appas in rural areas cannot afford proper modest wear. I am Bibi Aisha Lehe from Phenomenal Family, and I will be collecting gently worn abayas, scarves and kurtas to help those in need. Please drop off your donations at the Al Ansar Foundation or call 031 208 1601 to contribute.
This segment is brought to you by Kenfield Auto, your RMI approved service and repair specialist. 236 Brickfield Road, Overport. Kenfield Auto.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. ربنا وسعت كل شيء رحمة وعلما فاغفر للذين تابوا واتبعوا سبيلك وقهم عذاب الجحيم.
Car won't start.
Kenfield Auto.
Noisy brakes.
Kenfield Auto.
Due for a service.
Kenfield Auto. Kenfield Auto, the answer to all your car problems. Your service and repair specialist for your VW, Audi, Suzuki, Toyota, or just about any vehicle. Kenfield Auto, your RMI and insurance approved workshop. Follow the red and white board in the passage at 236 Brickfield Road, Overport. Call Shafi on 031 207 2399. Kenfield Auto.
One child, one dream.
A journey with Africa Muslims Agency that began 3 years ago has changed the lives of Syrian and Palestinian refugee children beyond their dreams. Help them to continue their education by sponsoring a student at the Amman School of Excellence in Lebanon for 25,200 Rand per year. Education at Amman can provide a brighter future for refugee families.
AMA, empowering, educating, inspiring.
Eid is coming and every child dreams of dressing up.
But sadly, many little ones might not.
Join me, Razia Rangwage,
And me, Fatima Karim.
as we race to clothe every deserving child this Eid.
For just 1,000 Rand, you can give a complete outfit. Zakat and Lillah welcome.
Call Outreach now on 031-208-1601 and bring joy to a child's Eid.
Durban Halal Meats, the butcher with a twist. Whether you're firing up the braai or stocking up for your business, we've got you covered. From premium lamb, beef and chicken to custom cuts and bulk orders, all 100% halal certified by Sanha. Enjoy our convenient buy and braai service, fast delivery and easy online ordering at durbanhalalmeats.co.za. Visit us at 84 Felix Dlamini Road, Durban Halal Meats. Quality, affordability, trust. Meat made better.
Treat to Nazila is proudly brought to you by Nona's Italian Kitchen, Strata Street Food, and the Magnum Capino Treat Store. Oh Allah, guide me and grant me well-being with those whom you have granted well-being.
اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك لنا فيما أعطيت وقنا شر ما قضيت فإنك تقضي ولا يقضى عليك وإنه لا يذل من واليت ولا يعز من عاديت تباركت ربنا وتعاليت.
Treat to Nazila is proudly brought to you by Nona's Italian Kitchen, Strata Street Food, and the Magnum Capino Treat Store. Oh Allah, guide me and grant me well-being with those whom you have granted well-being.
Craving bold flavors with a twist? Strata Street Food, where neon lights meets delicious bites. From sizzling burgers and crispy Korean wings, cheesy pizzas, and golden nachos, every bite is a journey. Don't miss our famous Tremazzini sandwiches. Bring your appetite and your squad and swing by Strata Street Food, where every meal feels like a celebration.
And don't forget to tell Mommy and Daddy to take you to Capino for the yummiest ice cream and a whole candy wonderland.
Strata Street Food. Taste the vibe. Taste the tradition.
Listen to News in Focus on Radio Al-Ansar, Durban 90.4 and Peter Marisburg 105.6 FM every Wednesday from 8 p.m. with Yunus Sakur. That's 8 p.m. every Wednesday. Radio Al-Ansar, keeping you informed.
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, welcome back to News in Focus with me, SUMAYA Khan. Our guest in studio is Dr. Lubna Nadvi and our brother Hassan Mutala just walked in. Yes, tonight we have been discussing about what's going on in Gaza. As we were mentioning, what is on the ground and what's really happening is completely different to what world media tend to put out there. That is why it's nice to know what's going on. But sister, Dr. Lubna Nadvi, South Africa's Democratic Alliance leader back home, John Steenhuisen steps down. What's going on?
Well, it's no surprise that he stepped down because he's been doing things that his party is not very happy with. For example, he's been using the party credit card to buy all kinds of things for himself and his family.
I have to cut you there.
Yes.
He's captured too.
Well, yeah, I suppose you could say that. And, for some time now, you could see that his actions have really not been above board. He's been the Minister of Agriculture, and in that capacity, he's tried to, I think, manage that portfolio. In his statement that he made today to say that he's delivered on all of his promises, he tried to, present a very sanitized version of his term, both as DA leader as well as the 30 years or so of his time in this party. So I think that he did the right thing by leaving, because I think that every leader has to at some point vacate their position. They can't be the president or the leader or the chairperson forever. So I think he did his time, and he, as he said, grew the party. He managed to take the DA into the government of national unity. So he was able to deliver on certain things. but he's left as the leader, and the party now has to find someone else to lead. So I would say that the DA is in a, I wouldn't say, new place. It has actually been here before. It has had to,
Yeah.
because it has leaders leaving before. And the reasons that Jenison has left, we all know now. He's tried to do it without, how can I put it, making himself seem as if, he's been a failure. He's tried to exit with some dignity. And I suppose his legacy will speak for itself.
Well, with 2026 local government elections, well, a lot of it will be speaking for itself. Inshallah, we just hope that our province, especially KZN, good things come. And with all that, we complain about service delivery and everything that goes with it tends to stop. Do we have a link up? Okay. We managed to link up with Sijad Hussain, United for Palestine UK Global Movement to Gaza, which is the UK delegation of the Global Movement to Gaza. The umbrella organization is the Global Summit Flotilla, under which falls the Global Movement to Gaza Summit. Well, Nusantara and Sumad Maghrib, the most well-known brand is the Global Summit Flotilla. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah so much for linking up with us. I believe you are 2 hours ahead or behind?
Yeah, that's right. Behind, 2 hours behind. It's 7:15 here. So it's 9:15
in the
in
UK.
South Africa. Yeah.
Okay, Jazakallah, we finally managed to link up with you. You are really involved. You were actually on one of the boats. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, in the first mission that went in was set sail on 31st of August last year. So on my boat was called the All-In Khan Yunis. So alhamdulillah, I was on the boat. At that time, there was somewhere, a lot of boats started off, but 42 sailed. There were about 462 people with us from 44 nationalities, alhamdulillah. It was from across the world. The people were from across the world. We set off from Spain. I set off from Spain, Barcelona. There were boats that sailed from Tunisia. There's boats that sailed from Italy, from Greece as well. So we eventually made a flotilla of 42 boats that sailed and headed towards Gaza to take humanitarian aid and to break the siege.
Okay. Gaza, the Rafah crossing in Egypt has reopened after months of closure for thousands of civilians. This is more than a border gate. It's a potential lifeline for medical treatment, essential supplies, and connections with the outside world. But reopening, truly a humanitarian breakthrough, or is it just a limited temporary gesture in the region, mired in political tension? How will it affect the daily life and the trade and, everything in Gaza and beyond? So we want to unpack the realities behind this move, its implication for the people on the ground and what signals in the broader regional and international political landscape. So, who stands to benefit the most from reopening the Rafah crossing?
It's unfortunately to what I've been following. They've opened the Rafah border, but it's not, as you mentioned. It's got to be fully functional. It's got to let aid in. It's got to let hundreds and hundreds of trucks in. It needs to have free movement of people, and it's just a token gesture, even if I can call it that. It's still controlled by the occupation, which it shouldn't be the case. There should be free movement, especially those in medical need, and essential items need to be let into Gaza. But that's not happening. Even yesterday, reports were coming. Militia linked to the Zionists, the occupation, they are controlling the border. They are is a lot of uncomfort for the people that are returning from Gaza. So unnecessary harassment that they're receiving from those militia, and those were the militia that was causing issues within Gaza itself and supporting the occupation. So, I mean, it's benefiting to an extent to the Zionists because they say, "Oh yes, we're accepting our agreement. This was our agreement. We are abiding by our agreement." But clearly, it's nowhere near what should be happening. I mean, my personal line is the Rafah border. It should be belonging to the Palestinians. They should have free in and out access as and when they need it. That's what it should be. Although the rhetoric from the Western world, the Britain is, the occupation left Gaza in somewhere around 2006. It's the fault of the Palestinians, but it's not. Land, air, and sea are controlled by the occupation. We went through it. I went through it when they attacked us. We were on international waters.
Brother Sijaj Hussain, once again, welcome to Radio Al Ansar on 90.4 FM in a province called Durban and in a town out of Durban, Pietermaritzburg. We really appreciate the time you're taking to link up with us. You can also, as you know, audio stream. In studio, we also have Dr. Lubna Nadvi. Dr. Lubna Nadvi is a South African academic, a political scientist based at University of KwaZulu-Natal, UKZN. She also works very closely with human rights. She's a human rights activist. She's a political activist. And she's also very close when it comes to the people of Gaza, as she has many drives and she writes about it. She's protests about it. She belongs to many other organizations. Well, we have her in studio and she would also like to chat with you.
That's great. That's great.
Thank you so much. So, Brother Sijad, I think one of the things that
I've lost. I can't hear.
I'm not sure if he's able to hear us.
Okay,
but,
I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Yes, so as I was saying, one of the things that we've been trying to do in South Africa is to build greater collaboration with our fellow activists from around the world. And, we currently have a visiting delegation from the Global Sumud Flotilla here in South Africa. They are part of the team that is preparing for the next installment of the flotilla that will sail later this year. So it's wonderful to be able to connect. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think we as South African activists and UK activists could do that would actually strengthen our objective to assist the Palestinians. Because, we talk about so many things, but one of the things we really need to do is to strengthen activist solidarity and activist collaboration across the world. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I mean, whatever is within the person's capacity, whether liaison with people. I mean, if they're protesting on the street, we need to sort of combine the events so the solidarity is shown across the world. If we do a movement where we write off to the politicians, we can coordinate those activities. That it's a collective voice across the globe. This BDS movement is extremely vital. Again, we need to work on that together. The items that we choose, the companies we focus on, the industries we focus on, we need to sort of have a combined effort behind it across the globe. So these sort of elements that we can, not everyone will be confident going on the streets, marching on the street. Not everyone will be confident to write to their MPs or fill in petitions because they don't want to divulge their personal information. But everyone can work on the BDS movement because it's a personal thing. When, for example, just as an example, just going out there shopping, no one's going to know what brand you've bought. So if we can push that toward on that focus, for example, now in the UK, there's a big push because of Ramadan coming up. There's a big push on check your dates, what dates you're buying, make sure they're not produced in occupied territories, check the label. So that's the sort of work we're doing. So again, we should some 2 billion Muslims across the world, and plus several other millions of people that have buy dates. So we can use, for example, just one of those projects we can work on now. Ramadan's going to start in approximately a couple of weeks. So if you can focus on that together, so it's got to be a united front on whatever level we do. And whatever we do, the Palestinians are appreciative. For example, I'm also a member of the Warsaw Kolbar Friendship Association. Kolbar is a small village town in the West Bank. And once we're on the streets, we're protesting, we're marching, we're carrying out activities. When they see our videos, our activities, they send messages back, and they sort of thank us for coming onto the streets, thank us for carrying out these activities, because they see us as being in the free world, and that what we're doing for them is, we're raising our voice for them. We're once they are free, we can be free. So we need to carry on this as a collective voice. Send them word out that these campaigns are coming up. Let's, as a world, work on it together.
Thank you very much.
Well, Dr. Lubna Nadvi has another engagement. Jazakallah so much for coming all the way, especially this evening. We really appreciate it, and looking forward to have you on many, many shows on Radio Al Ansar. That was Dr. Lubna Nadvi. She is a South African academic and political scientist based at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. She also works in the School of Social Sciences, teaches political science, international relations, and conflict transformation and peace studies. We really appreciate all the activists in South Africa making a difference. Brother Sijaj Hussain, going back, are there vulnerable groups such as, patients needing medical care who still face barriers even with crossing over?
Oh yes, definitely. I mean, they've letting out limited. I mean, they trying to travel across the Gaza Strip is very difficult, and people, I mean, even we had a message across on one of the groups that someone's father suffered from a heart attack. They need specialist help. They need to be taken out of Gaza because there's nothing left to help them with God, and there's so many restrictions that got put in their way to. I mean, again, it's ethnic cleansing, it's a genocide. I mean, the killing's still there, but this is another way of killing people. Don't allow them to receive medical aid. So any medical treatment, and eventually so many thousands will die from negligence because of not receiving medical treatment. Some may be getting through, but extremely small amount, just a token gesture. I mean, I think it must have been a couple of months ago, we had some children come to the UK as well, but only a very small amount. They've had, across the families, they've got so many problems. I mean, I work with doctors as well, and doctors' charities who actually go out to Gaza to treat people, and what they sort of feedback that they give, they've got no services at all in Gaza. They have to reuse the equipment. Normally one patient has operation, they get new equipment out, but because they do not have any services or facilities, anything, they have to improvise. So really, we need these medical equipment to come into Gaza rather than taking the patients out of Gaza. And what their plan is exactly, they're going to let more out, but less returning. So again, a form of ethnic cleansing.
Brother Sijaj, we're fully aware that you have another engagement to be at, but what lessons can policymakers learn from past openings and closures at Rafah for future, generations?
I mean, it's basically let the border be controlled by the Palestinians. It's their border. They will liaise with the Egyptians, and they can come to an arrangement how international borders work. So if the West is saying, the politicians saying that Gaza was left as an independent area, let it be independent. Land, air, and sea, it needs to be totally free. They leave the Palestinians to manage their own affairs.
Brother Sijaj Hussain, Jazakallah so much, linking up all the way from the UK, United Kingdom, here down in South Africa to Radio Al Ansar in Durban, where we are busy hosting this show. Jazakallah, looking forward to link up with you and meeting you in person, and probably all of us together at one protest when you're down in Durban, inshallah.
Inshallah, Sister, Jazakallah khair for the invite. And the next mission, inshallah, I'll try linking up with you live from the next mission. If any of your listeners want to join on the second wave of the Global Smooth Flotilla, we're looking to sail in September 26th. All they have to do is go onto the globalsmoothflotilla.org website and register there. Thank you very much.
Okay, Jazakallah so much. Jazakallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. That was Brother Sijaj Hussain, United for Palestine, based in the UK Global Movement to Gaza, UK, which is the UK delegation of Global Movement to Gaza. The umbrella organization is the Global Summit Flotilla, under which falls the Global Movement to Gaza, Summit Nusantara and Summit Maghrib. The most well-known brand is the Global Summit Flotilla. Yes, we will be taking a short nasheed break, and we would continue with News in Focus.
Welcome to Simplex Radio. Visit our showroom for the full range of car audio. Our TV department carries top brands with quality LED panels, full HD to Ultra HD, and now the experience of Super Ultra HD. Visit our theater rooms and transform your home with brands like Onkyo, Integra, Denon, Boston Acoustics, Yamaha, and more for quality audio visual experience. Now available, full range of home appliances. A one-stop shopping experience. Call 031 306 4029 or Kenilworth Park, 202 Brickville Road, Overport. Simplex Radio, the name you can trust.
You know what really gets under my skin? When my cake or icing just doesn't come out right. It's such a bummer. But I found this incredible margarine called Wooden Spoon, and it's been a total lifesaver for my baking adventures. It makes my icing turn out just perfect every time. When I whip up something with Wooden Spoon, I feel like a master baker. Seriously, my cakes have never looked better. The secret? Wooden Spoon margarine. It's like the magic ingredient for nailing those perfect bakes. And guess what? It's even endorsed by the South African Bakers Guild Association. Just another quality product from the Willowton Group.
Durban Halal Meats, the butcher with a twist. Whether you're firing up the braai or stocking up for your business, we've got you covered. From premium lamb, beef, and chicken to custom cuts and bulk orders, all 100% halal, certified by Sanha. Enjoy our convenient buy and braai service, fast delivery, and easy online ordering at durbanhalalmeats.co.za. Visit us at 84 Felix Dlamini Road. Durban Halal Meats. Quality, affordability, trust. Meat made better.
Ya Rasool Allah, Ya Habib Allah, Aka, 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 Aka. फिर के गली गली तबाह ठोकर सब की खाए क्यों दिल को जो अक्ल दे खुदा तेरी गली से जाए क्यों रुखसत काफिला कशान गश से हमें उठाए क्यों سے قافلہ کشان غش سے ہمیں اٹھائے کیوں سوتے ہیں ان کے سائے میں سوتے ہیں ان کے سائے میں کوئی ہمیں جگائے کیوں دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جائے کیوں یاد حضور کی قسم غفلت عیش ہے ستم یاد حضور کی قسم غفلت عیش ہے ستم خوب ہے قید غم میں غم خوب ہے قید غم میں غم کوئی ہمیں چھڑائے کیوں گلی وہ جو نہ تھے تو کچھ نہ تھا وہ جو نہ ہو تو کچھ نہ ہو وہ جو نہ تھے تو کچھ نہ تھا وہ جو نہ ہو تو کچھ نہ ہو جان ہے وہ جہان کی جان ہے وہ جہان کی جان ہے تو جہان ہے دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جائے کیوں ہاں جان ہے عشق مصطفیٰ روز فضوں کرے.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back in News in Focus. Yes, with me, Sumaya Khan. I'm the host this evening. Our guest in studio was Dr. Ludma Nadvi, and we linked up with Sajid Hussain from the UK. In studio right now, we have Brother Hassan Mutala, who is going to tell us about the money. But welcome to News in Focus.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening, Sumaya and the listeners out there.
Jazakallah for taking the time to be here. Yes, you were listening earlier on when we were discussing, and even when we were discussing off air, tourism in KZN, especially Durban, it's blooming. And one would have never thought that this would be happening. Why? And what are the reasons?
I think, we've had actually in the last year, alhamdulillah, there's actually been a reasonable turnaround in terms of Durban. Both in terms of, firstly, there's been small improvements taking place in terms of slight improvements in terms of service delivery. You've seen the beaches are a little bit cleaner in terms of the promenade and the like.
Yeah.
Slight improvement in terms of crime, more visible policing, particularly around the prominent areas. For the first time ever, I think, if I can remember, at least for the last many years, Durban's appeared has been on the Time Out magazine, which is a very, very popular travel magazine and globally recognized. It's been ranked number 14 as one of the top places to visit globally in 2026, which is a fantastic, I think, sort of naming for Durban to come into a prominent magazine and to highlight the attractiveness of Durban to a global tourist base. I think important. We're up there in terms of, if I look at who we're up against in that list there, within the top 20 places like the Rockies in Canada, Rabat in Morocco. Morocco is always viewed as a very high tourist destination, and Durban's Brazil's always been one of those places, and in fact Vietnam more recently, Nepal. So I think it's important for Durban that out of the South African, normally we always play, as a second fiddle to the likes of Cape Town and the Kruger Park and those places. Important that Durban's come up with that. And I think one of the things that it's been highlighting as Durban being popular is the fact that you've got fantastic weather throughout the year. We've got warm, obviously very warm summers, but relatively mild winters, which people find very, very nice and pleasant to come and visit during the winter months as well. Very affordable. If you look at us relative to not only other South African countries, South African cities, but other cities throughout the world, Durban's extremely affordable, especially when people are coming in with their dollars or euros or pounds and spending it here. It's an attractive destination. And thirdly as well, Durban is a fantastic base, not only to visit the coastline in terms of our beaches around here, or even on the south coast, on the north coast, but it's a good base to move up towards the inlands, whether it's the Midlands Meander or the Drakensberg. Very, very close. Within 3 hours you can visit many very attractive areas, stay in those areas, and come back to Durban, and obviously fly out from Durban or even Johannesburg as well. So I think important for South Africa, very importantly for Durban. And I think with the opening of 1 or 2 new resorts like Club Med as well in July, I think inshallah 2026 could potentially be one of our best years in terms of tourism, barring obviously any external issues or geopolitical issues that could take place from a global perspective.
Do you know, that brings rise to money, and that's investment. So wouldn't that bring private sector investing into especially South Africa?
What's been one of and a very interesting thing for South Africa over the past year, when we're comparing it for now over the last 15 years, when you look at the Jacob Zuma era that came through post 2008, right through to when President Ramaphosa came here through as well. The focus in terms of investment was largely, after the global financial crisis, was the public sector had started to spend a bit. So government spent, and with the result, we had a massive rise in terms of our debt. So where a lot of the spending went to? Our power stations, Kusile and Mudupi, billions went to it. Unfortunately, there was a huge amount of corruption as well, and therefore overspending and the like. And only the benefit of it slowly we started to see over the past year or two, where our power stations and the grids sort of stabilized. But there was a lot of wastage in terms of spending by public infrastructure spending, and there was not effective spending. So with the result, our public enterprises like the Transnets, the Escoms, the Portnet, the ports and the rail and the like were sort of deteriorated rapidly. And when there was a loss of confidence because of that, private sector did not spend in this country. So both local companies in South Africa and foreign investors basically withdrew in terms of and we had net outflows in terms of investments and money flowing out of the country. Therefore, our rand also came under a lot of pressure. Our, things became a lot more difficult in terms of South Africa. Unemployment had continued to rise. However, during this past year, we've seen a tripling in terms of private sector investment into the country, which is fantastic. So slowly you've seen an improvement in terms of the private sector now having more confidence into the country and are now starting to spend more. And guess what? There's more projects coming through in terms of looking this year and the year and the following year and the like. For example, local companies, Vodacom, spending over 85 billion rands in terms of the expansion and modernization of digital infrastructure in this country, which is fantastic because you're going to get 5G rollout, which is important for us for communication. I mean, I'm holding up listeners, you can't see this, or maybe on the Facebook or the like, but I'm holding up my phone. I mean, whether it's the phone or the laptop or the tablet and the like, you're using a lot of data and 5G is an effective talk. And, we were just talking about earlier about, Starlink and the like. But still, when you look at fiber and 5G and the like, that is the most fast and efficient type of use of technology, and also relatively cost efficient as well. Obviously, more so in the metro areas and less so in the rural areas, which obviously the likes of Starlink could be beneficial in those areas. The other big investments coming through, if you're looking, for example, also on the technology side, the telecom side, there's a company called NT55 Investments, which is not technology, related to a 50 billion rand inland port in Gauteng. Now think about it. While the ports now, there's a bit of focus on the Durban port and the Cape Town ports in terms of improving. We're getting the Filipinos are coming to the Durban port and going to help to revive and improve the efficiencies and invest in that port. But Gauteng as well, where containers are moving in and out, being one of basically the economic hub of South Africa, this 50 billion rand inland port investment will have a fantastic impact in terms of economic growth, infrastructure improvement, and importantly, job creation and contribution to the economy as well. So I think that's also an important point. People are putting money, bricks and mortar that will help the country in terms of improving economically and improving in terms of driving more and more investment into the country. I think one other area to highlight was, while Eskom has spent, with this, we've had obviously terrible spending in terms of the corruption around Madupi and Kusile over the last 10, 15 years, but they are still spending as well. And one of the, Eskom, in fact, they're one of the few public sector companies that will be also spending over 300 billion rands. They're talking about the power infrastructure overhaul over the next number of years as well. So I think there is renewed confidence back in South Africa again. And that's important. Investors only go into places and put their money when they have some confidence. And you've seen the strengthening in the rand. We talked a lot about it last week, where we focused on obviously a lot of the drivers were external like that, but people see some strengthening in the rand. They see inflation coming down. They see a bit more stability in the government over the past year. They see sort of policies being stable and the like. That drives confidence, that drives both local and foreigners. And you've seen foreigners buying into our companies and country by putting in money. Barlow Worlds got taken out. You've seen other opportunities where foreigners are now looking to target and buy out certain local companies as well, because they see a future not only for South Africa in terms of our domestic population, but South Africa in terms of an opportunity for them to grow business into the African continent. Africa is being viewed as a potentially huge market in terms of economic growth over the next 10, 15, 20 years. And I think South Africa is an ideal base to sort of try and leverage of that and tap into that market, but using the South Africa, which is one of the more technologically and advanced and has the relatively good infrastructure compared to many of the other African countries.
We're always complaining about service deliveries. We are talking about the corruption in South Africa, but it's good to hear that from a tourist point that we are blooming and doing quite well. This is News in Focus. You're listening to Sumaya Khan. As you know, we have unpacked some of the most pressing political issues happening around the world, from the reopening of the Rafah crossing and whether it offers genuine humanitarian relief. We had our guest who we linked up from the UK, Siyaj Hussain and Dr. Lubna Naqvi. We'll be taking a short nasheed break.
Join me every Saturday on Nightline for 15 minutes of changing your heart with a helping hands buzz. Yadla and Sar making a difference. Let's meet at 8:30 to 8:45.
As school opens, School Matters in partnership with Save Hyper and Radio Al Ansar is calling you to help a child step into the new year with confidence. We're collecting school uniforms and school shoes, new or gently used, to support learners in need. Drop off your donations at Save Hyper 362 Victoria Road or at Radio Al Ansar 240 Ortman Road, Monday to Friday, 9:30 to 3 p.m. Let's come together, uplift our community, and make a real difference, one child at a time. School Matters, Save Hyper, and Radio Al Ansar, because education starts with dignity.
Hey, youth of today, it's time to keep it real. Real talk, real issues, real youth. From mental health and peer pressure to faith, identity, and the power of social media. No topic is off limits. Join Sumaya Khan every Wednesday evening from 6 to 7 p.m. on Radio Lansar. Real talk where your voice matters. It's your space, your story, your platform. Real talk, real issues, real youth. Only on Radio Lansar.
Assalamu alaikum. It's me, Aisha Jamal. Join me every Saturday on Nightline for 15 minutes of changing your heart with a helping hands buzz. Yadla and Sar making a difference. Let's meet at 8:30 to 8:45.
Radio Al Ansar, 24/7, 365.
तन्हा हूँ मैं और इम्तिहान लाखों तने हैं सामने बैठा हूँ मैं मायूस कुन आए ना कोई मुझे थामने अल्लाह अल्लाह तू मेरी सुन ले सदा حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير मायूब हूँ तेरा करम करता रखा इज्जत भी दी बढ़ के दिया औकात से दौलत भी ताकत भी और वक्त भी कर दे खता हर माफ तू फहरिस्त इसियां को छोड़ दे अल्लाह अल्लाह तू मेरी सुन ले सदा حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير रंगीनियों खुद गर्जियों में है गुजारी ये उम्र है आरज़ू बस एक यही कर दूं तेरे नाम शामो सहर तस्कीन दिल हासिल करूं रुख अपनी जानिब तू मोड़ दे अल्लाह अल्लाह तू मेरी सुन ले सदा हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील निअमल मौला व निअमन नसीर हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल मौला व निअमन नसीर हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील निअमल मौला व निअमन नसीर लब पे रहे जिक्रो दुआ और तुझसे मैं डरता रहूं करके अमल कुरान पे जन्नत की राहों पे चलता रहूं खिदमत करूं इस्लाम की पछतावे का गम तोड़ दे अल्लाह अल्लाह तू मेरी सुन ले सदा हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील निअमल मौला व निअमन नसीर हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील निअमल मौला व निअमन नसीर हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील निअमल मौला व निअमन नसीर रोता रहा सजदों में जो दिल में लिए उम्मत का गम पढ़ता रहूं मैं तो फतन अपने नबी
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to News in Focus with me, Sumaya Khan. Alhamdulillah, we have unpacked quite a few pertinent burning issues concerning politics and the normal life in South Africa. Our guest in studio currently is Brother Hassan Mutala. Brother Hassan, we chatted about tourism in Durban, we chatted about investment in South Africa, especially with the private sector and where it's just going to start even booming more. You know, there's some issue in KZN concerning KZN when it comes to natural disasters, flooding. We do not receive rainfall for quite a long time. When I mean rainfall which is meaningful for plantation, for survival of the animals, water for us, and even our dams.
I think one of the reasons why I want to sort of just touch on this area around water. So, for example, South Africa, when we look at over the last number of years, one of the big issues we did have was around electricity supply. So electricity was a big issue for us. We saw it with the load shedding and, the challenges we had faced. And alhamdulillah, through some of the efforts that were done in terms of both, you've seen private sector investments. You've seen also some improvement in terms of the likes of Eskom, their grid improvement coming through. We've seen a more steady supply. Yes, we're going to get outages like, yesterday in the Musgrave area, day before again in many of the other areas, Morningside and a few other areas with the humidity and the heat that we've been experiencing. Obviously, aircons are running at full blast. The grids are facing certain pressures, and there is possibilities of getting outages for a few hours at a time and the like. But in terms of stability for long periods, we've been fortunate to see that over the last year particularly. An area of concern, though, being a country that is water scarce, is the issue around water supply. Now, South Africa has had, in the last 6 months or so, if you look at some of the key regions, whether it's Gauteng, KZN and the like, you've had certain parts of the country has had fair amount of rain. Yeah. You look at the likes of, the flooding that has taken place during the December, January periods in the likes of Limpopo. Kruger National Park was actually closed for a period as well because excessive rains. Mozambique is going through a massive amount of flooding disaster they experience at the moment. And various parts of SA have had these challenges in terms of flooding and the like. Then you've had the likes of Gauteng, who's had fantastic rains during the November, December, and to some extent January as well. They've had good rains and the like, but they're also having a challenge, and it's around the infrastructure. And then you come into KZN. Parts of KZN have had phenomenal rain. Very good rain. But Durban in the last 2 months or so, I think during December and January, the rainfall numbers seem to have come off a bit. And I think it's an important point to highlight because generally it's our, if you look at normally September through to March is normally our sort of rainfall period. And then it sort of eases off, after that. Why I highlight this is twofold. Firstly, our current infrastructure in terms of holding the rain that we have is in dire straits. There is a big issue. The rain that is coming through, in fact, in in many cases, 50% of it is being lost into the system because of the poor infrastructure. And Joburg is a prime example of that. KZN got its own challenges as well, but Joburg, you are seeing it rampantly, that they are having issues in terms of water outages, despite the dams being full and the phenomenal rains, is because of the poor infrastructure in terms of supplying clean water to households. It's a big issue. And there needs to be a huge focus on that by the public sector, which is your municipalities, government and the like, and also private sector needs to spend a bit more around that as well. Like what there was done in terms of solar and those are, I think increasingly the corporate and the private sector needs to also try and focus on that and spend a bit more around water preservation and water usage to ensure that. Secondly, if you look at our water usage, Cape Town, I moved from Cape Town, was it 6 years back? And I experienced when that time when there was day zero was literally around the corner. And you had huge issues in terms of water supply, the huge penalties in terms of you used a certain amount of water extra during the day and the like. And you had to queue in lines to try and get drinking water from the supermarkets and the like. It was dire straits, and Cape Town came to the brink of day zero. Fortunately, alhamdulillah, the rains came through. Cape Town again is starting to see that the usage has picked up tremendously and there's concerns. To put into perspective, global average in terms of using water per day is on average between 120 to 140 liters per day per person. In Cape Town, it's over 200 liters per day. And I think it's a reflection of also many other cities like Durban and Johannesburg as well, that our averages are around that level. We have to use water sparingly. We have to. It is an important blessing that the Almighty has granted us. We must make shukr and be grateful for it, and we must protect what we do have of it. That means use it sparingly, don't waste water. And unfortunately, you do see, because of the poor infrastructure on any given day in Overport or Musgrave or Morningside, there's a leakage somewhere or whatnot, and you're seeing water being wasted through the system. There needs to be a renewed focus on that in terms of spending on infrastructure to ensure that our water supply is protected so that we do not face that day. One area that is facing dire straits is the Garden Route and the Eastern Cape. The Garden Route, you go to Knysna or George and those places, they're on the verge of this day zero issues. And they're really going through tough times. Alhamdulillah, we got some of the NGOs like the likes of Gift of the Givers are providing water and supplying and helping those activities. But we dependent on the Almighty to grant us firstly the rains and and relief from the rain through beneficial rain, so that the droughts can be disappear for many of these regions. But secondly and importantly as well is that the municipalities, whether it's Amgeni municipality, Itikweni, Johannesburg municipality, or Shwane, or whoever it is across the country, there needs to be a focus in terms of spending on water infrastructure, especially over the next 5 years, to ensure that water supply going forward is protected. Because with the weather phenomenons that we are experiencing globally, it's not a South African thing, it's a global thing. You can see across the globe, there's different, weather patterns change so rapidly. You get extreme cold or extreme heat. We in Durban in the last 2-3 weeks, we've been seeing it's been a relatively hot January, and February is likely to be the same as well. You are getting extreme weather patterns across the globe, and that's not going to change anytime soon. It's going to become, in fact, worse going forward as well. To manage that and to counter that, your infrastructure needs to be solid. And whatever rains you're getting or whatever forms of water you're getting, you need to ensure that it's protected. And we, as the consumers out there that utilize water for drinking, bathing, and whatever it may be, need to use it sparingly so that this precious resource, remember, wars are generally, when you talk about, wars normally, when you globally, wars are fought around resources. And, whether it's fought around like how Trump went and kidnapped Venezuelan president around oil resources, or the Iraqi war that happened many years back, again, around oil and the like. There's a potential in the future that wars will be fought around water. Because water will become increasingly a more and more scarce resource and a very, very precious commodity. And we, being a water scarce country, needs to ensure that we manage this resource effectively and protect it as best as we can.
Okay. As you're talking, I'm getting messages. This message comes from Mr. Khan. Water complaints are reported, but municipality failed to respond timelessly. Leakage on roads of many places reported several times in the last week. This is sad reality, and it's unbelievable. Well, we see it every single day. We all tend to get frustrated. That is why local elections are coming up.
100%.
So
I think we must be very important. And obviously, this radio show in particular is going to focus on as we get closer towards that, there'll be a lot of focus around, raising awareness and the importance of elections. And I think especially the municipal elections, the local government elections is an important milestone. Everyone that's eligible to vote, firstly, make sure that you register to vote. And then secondly, make sure that you participate. These elections, small differences can have a big impact in terms of who you're electing and who you want to come through. And it's important, therefore, that everyone that has the ability and the right to vote, register and make sure when the time comes that you do vote as well.
It's so important. Your vote counts. And service delivery has been a burning issue throughout the last few years, I would say. Well, we have come to the end of the program. This evening, our guest was Dr. Lubna Nadvi. We had Sijaj Hussain from United of Palestine from the UK. We had... and we still have Brother Hassan Mutala. He touched on water right now. That's so important. Well, that brings us to the end of News in Focus of economic transformation in South Africa, and how we can better our country. And Brother Hassan mentioned your vote counts. We end by reminding ourselves that justice is a trust, leadership is a responsibility, and every voice matters. May we be guided by truth, accountability, and compassion. Until next time, peace be upon you. And inshallah, next week, we will definitely have Brother Yunus Sakur in studio. Hassan, inshallah. From me, Sumaya Khan and Brother Hassan Mutala. Till next week, Assalamu alaikum.
The views and opinions expressed by the presenters and guests of Radio Al Ansar are not necessarily the views and opinions of Radio Al Ansar and the Al Ansar Foundation.
Listen to News in Focus on